This week I saw one of the scariest charts I've seen in a long time. And it's not about the stock market. We're not talking about the stock market yet, but it does affect the stock market. This chart that was put up by the New York Fed, so it's legit. It's scary. And you're going to see more of it. You're going to see more talk about it. You're going to see it in the news. You can see it on TikTok coming up shortly. But here it is. This is the student loan delinquency that's happening. And you say, well, Brooke, before you show me the graph, I've heard this before. Student loans are high. There's delinquencies on them. I get it. No, this is different. So a little bit of a backdrop on that. First of all, student loans are $1.8 trillion in the US. That's a huge number. That's almost double the annual interest cost for the US government at this time. That's incredible. And it's 43 million people have student loans. So this is pervasive. It's not just a small group of people. If you take a look at the working people, it's about 163 million people working in the US. That's almost 1/4 of the working people. I'm not going to get into the morality about people paying off debt and all that sort of stuff, but it always blows me away that there's people 50 plus, and we're going to be talking about that group because they're important, 50 years old plus, that still have student debt. And they are delinquent. In fact, they're a problem. So let's take a look at what's happening here. The current problem started with COVID. What we saw the Biden administration hand out lots of free money, taxpayer money to people to help them get by. And they also said that, well, student debt, we're going to say you can't pay this right now because you're not working. I got it. But then they kept delaying it. After COVID ended, they kept on pushing it out further and further. Next year, well, we're going to roll that out to next year. And people started to think that, well, maybe we don't have to pay off our student debt. We'll just keep spending. And right now in the economy, we've seen the lower income groups, middle income groups, really in financial difficulty. Sure, there's a lot of people at the top of the income group that still have a lot of money or spending money, and they're the people driving this economy. But right now, all of a sudden, what we've seen is the new administration come in and go, well, you know what? We actually would like you to start paying off that student debt. And this is a problem. We're seeing delinquencies spike higher and go higher, dramatically higher. So let's take a look at this graph. This is the graph you can see heading into the COVID, that the delinquency was approximately 9-10% on student debt. And then the graph, this blue line here, just drops right off and then picks up again, or I should say the red line just drops off. And then, as you can see in 2025, all of a sudden spikes up to around 13% and rising. The problem here is there's a lack of capacity to pay the student debt. And student debt, you cannot declare bankruptcy on. This is going to be a huge problem. With 43 million people having student debt, now some of them obviously can pay it, but even the ones that can pay it, they're going to have to transfer discretionary spending over to paying off their debt. And paying off debt takes money out of circulation. So this is going to be a dampening effect on the economy. So instead of taking that trip or buying a new car, they're going to have to pay that off on a monthly basis. Let's say it's $400 a month or whatever it is. That is a huge, huge impact. The people that can't pay it are going to have a huge problem because their credit scores are going to go through the floor with their delinquency rating, because the delinquency on student debt is being reported into the credit scores. So there's going to be less borrowing to buy cars, for houses, etc. And with 1/4 of the working population having student debt, overall, this is going to have a huge dampening effect. And I think you're going to start to see a lot of TikToks with people having student debt that, well, they're going to be saying, well, I took out student debt for $50,000. I paid $60,000 over time, and I owe $80,000. How is this fair? Well, it's a law of compounding interest. But you're going to see a lot of that coming out. And I think unemployment still is a big factor in the end about the inflection for the economy if unemployment starts to get really bad. And we're seeing some really weak signals coming out from a whole bunch of employment indices, but the unemployment rate is still low. But if the unemployment rate starts to move higher, that's when we might see the narrative change in the market, the inflection point. Will this cause the inflection point to change by itself? Well, I think as it passes through to the unemployment rate over time, I think that's probably what's going to happen. But we will see more of this happening. This next chart that I'm going to show you is actually very shocking as well. Really surprised me. This is a student loan delinquency broken down by age group. And you can see that all age groups follow the same pattern I just showed you with student loan delinquency overall. But the one thing that stands out in this chart is the dark blue line, which represents the 50-year-old plus category for student loans. And if you take a look here we are. They are the leading delinquency rate here, and around 18%. This is absolutely huge in its impact. So I'm guessing most people 50 plus did not go to school when they were like 45. They've been holding on to this student loan debt for a long time. And it's been building. That's why you'll see these TikToks of people that paid off student debt, paid more than they borrowed, but they still owe more as well. And this is a problem because this age group needs to be able to retire. If they can't pay off their student loans, then this is going to be a huge problem on other spending and also retirement as well. This is extremely concerning. So how will this impact the stock market? Well, I think over time it's going to have a drag on the stock market. I do think it's going to have an impact on the economy. There's going to be less discretionary spending. It's another layer of loan payment with delinquencies increasing. So we're already having trouble paying off the other credit cards, mortgages, auto loans, etc. And now we're adding a brand new payment for many on top of that. And that's going to have an impact on all of those other categories as well, because those delinquencies are going to go up. So as student loans become more delinquent, the people that are falling delinquent on those aren't going to be paying their credit cards. They're going to go delinquent on that as well. So this is going to have a rolling impact. And how this goes through the economy really is it will increase unemployment over time. It's very difficult to gauge how much, because the numbers are so big of how many people actually have student debt and how much difficulty that they're going to have is hard to determine. But consumers are stretched at this point, and this is a very difficult situation. So I do think it will weigh on the stock market eventually as it works its way through. I don't know when exactly that's going to take place over time. I'm not sure the current government's going to start doing any offsets for that at all. But maybe, it's over 6 months. I think we'll start to see some of the impact around the writings on newspaper articles about students having trouble or student loan debt, the difficulty around it, and TikTok videos, etc. But I think it's going to work its way slowly through the economy. And the potential for that is that companies actually produce less because people don't have that money to be able to buy their goods. And we see that rolling on a cycle that takes place. Is it all of a sudden going to hit bang? I think it's going to take a little bit of time, but it is another factor for the stock market. If consumers can't have the same discretionary spending that they've had in the past. Watch out for this, more in the news coming up.